Hey everyone, welcome back to the 6.5 Summit. It's day 3. I'm Daniel Newman, one of the hosts here at the 6.5 Summit, and I'm very excited for this track opening keynote session. We've got a alumni to the 6.5 Summit, Dave Shull, who's president of HP Workforce Solutions. Dave, welcome back to the summit. So good to have you here today.
Delighted to be back, Daniel. It's great. Good timing.
Yeah, it is great. You're back, but you're in a new role.
I am.
You are now president. You're leading the HP Workforce Solutions business at HP after Poly was acquired in a big move last year. First off, how's that going?
It's going great. It's been so much fun to be around the world and see all the customers and hear the excitement to say, okay, we got HP PCs. That's great. HP printers, collaboration. Can we talk about this hybrid working thing and how do we start to tie it all together? So lots of excitement in the field from our customers and our sales teams, and it's been good.
Yeah, and I think kind of setting the stage for the conversation, of course, the event is all about, navigating rough waters. It's about, a different year. We got inflation up, interest rates up. You've got a lot of concern about, are we going into a recession? You've got banking crises in different regions of the country. But at the same time, tech's been super resilient in a lot of ways. We've got this AI boom. It was a huge session here at 6.5 Summit this year with AI. Every company had something to say about it. But we're also kind of seeing a bit of a workplace revolution, Dave, and we're going to talk about this in a moment. But during the period of the pandemic, we kind of did this whole we're going to work remote forever. It's it. We're going back to video is the thing. And then as we've kind of come out of the pandemic, we've seen this pendulum swinging where some industries have been like, "Yep, we're sticking with remote." Some industries are like, "Get your tail back in the office." And other industries have been somewhere in between, kind of like we're doing this hybrid work thing. But I think you would agree, we didn't all see where we were going to land. And I'm not sure yet we 100% know where we're going to land in terms of how much hybrid is going to fit in every different company's work style.
Yeah, I think we're all still experimenting, right? Even with my own executive team, I'm saying every quarter we're definitely together face to face for multiple days because I think that's such a critical strategy setting sort of path that we're on. But I'm sitting here in my place in San Jose, California, talking to you, and this is life, right? And I think this is sort of the future going forward. So we're all in on the hybrid concept now. What exactly that means, we're all kind of experimenting, right? And with our hundreds of customers, thousands of customers around the world, we're learning a lot about best practices and saying, how do we take all of the basically experiments that we're all running to say, are we going to actually earn that return for the employee to come back into the office? And things have to change from a technology point of view, from a sense of mission point of view, from a collaboration point of view to make this work.
Yeah, so let's start there. Let's talk about what you're doing, leading that business at HP in the workforce solution side. What's the strategy? What's driving your business right now?
Well, so first of all, from a broader macro point of view, HP is pretty excited about saying we've been selling amazing devices for decades, and it's created an amazing, beautiful business, right? But it's not sort of creating a long-term, lifelong relationship with the customers. And so we're pivoting as an organization to say we really do value that long customer relationship, and that means we need to think differently about how we solve their problems. So specifically within workforce solutions, it's saying, okay, let's take all this experience that we have across Poly and HP and our printing businesses and say, what are the best practices from a hybrid working point of view? Let's package that up, right? Specifically around the gear, the management, the monitoring, the insights that we can provide to our customers, and then provide that on a solution basis. And given all the uncertainty that you talked about, right? Given all the capital uncertainty and the interest rate uncertainty, people are looking for something that's easier to use and is a lot more flexible than what they've had in the past.
Yeah, I think you hit on some good things, and I think that, another part of the strategy that at least when I came out and I visited you all at Amplify,
Yeah.
as well as the fact that you guys are being really diligent and focused to stay the course on social impact as well, which I
Yeah.
think is going to be really important because I saw a lot of companies that sort of pendulum swang to the upside during you know the the ZERP period. Money was flowing, growth was relentless. Seemed anybody could grow double digits. Let's do some things that are good. But the fact is, you know, PCs, which is one of HP's core businesses, has had a pretty rough year. But when I listened to you and Enrique and the team, You're like, no, we are absolutely doubling down on this. We believe in it. It matters. It's good business. So that strategy too, I think, is something I was really impressed by. You heard me in the openings monologue, Dave, talk a little bit about how I see hybrid work changing and how I kind of talked about, again, these continuums of work. But I'm curious, you have deep expertise. You've been in this a long time. How do you sort of see hybrid work changing, the workplace itself?
I think it from a CIO point of view, let's talk about it from a customer point of view. From a CIO point of view, it's added a whole nother layer of uncertainty to the equation that they're trying to manage. And they're saying for years as a CIO, I've had to manage the total cost of ownership. I've had to manage cybersecurity, risk, and compliance issues. Right? But now I have this new thing where the power of the employee, the power of the people is actually quite a bit higher because employees realize, hey, I do have a lot more latitude, I have a lot more flexibility, and I'm demanding that flexibility from a career point of view. So all of a sudden, there's a new dialogue going on between CIOs and CHROs and heads of facilities, right? Which probably didn't talk that often in the past, and so it's creating a new balance within the organization, and so people are really searching for how do I get that simple view of the employee piece of the equation? And that's going to require new technology, new processes, new views of the experience that the workforce is actually having to really make sure that we're understanding their sentiment in a different way. And that's a pretty fundamental shift. Then on top of that, of course, you see all the articles about how do you have engagement and mission and work, and how do you get people into the office, and what are we changing? But that's all tactical. I think the big shift is really this macro shift where employee engagement is an equal factor now for the CIOs that perhaps it wasn't in the past.
Yeah, and Dave, would you say that the CEO also sort of has to deal with this sort of pivoting digital strategy? I mean, I've been listening to different companies come out and make some announcements, say, "Hey, we're coming back 3 days,"
Right.
or we're going to mandate. I've seen some that say 5 days. I've seen some that companies that I've heard CEOs are actually nervous to even put a policy in place because acquiring talent has been so hard.
Right.
And now you have certain sects of your talent base that are kind of saying they're not going to come back to work. And then on the other hand, you have, not come physically back. Of course, they're
Right.
working. I mean, I had one CEO tell me, I'm not kidding, of a big
Mm.
telco tell me that when they started asking people to come back to work, they found out that a certain subset of their workforce had taken on second jobs.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you mentioned the CIO, which I think is very interesting, but what do you think? Just kind of what's your take on how much can the CEO drive it versus the CIO execute it? Does it have to start at the top of the business? I mean, you as someone that's been a CEO multiple times, I think
Right.
how would you be thinking about it?
Well, it's interesting. I went into Poly as a COVID pandemic CEO, right? And trying to figure out ways to connect with my board, but also with the team was challenging. And I was traveling a lot, even in the midst of the pandemic, because I felt like I had to. But then I would meet employees in coffee shops, right? We may have been 5 blocks away from the office, but we were in a coffee shop just from a safety point of view. So the shifts early on in the pandemic, right? We all went through, but now I think fundamentally the expectations have changed. And CEOs, yes, we have a macroeconomic instability, we have interest rates going up, but unemployment is still quite low, right? Especially here in the US. And so how do you deal with sort of that balance of factors is pretty important. I think what's interesting compounding that is if you talk to CIOs and CEOs, 83% of the CEOs are saying we're going to digitally transform the business. And especially in the tech sector, that's accelerated a lot with AI, right? We all have our chat GPT sort of or Bard sort of strategies in place. And so there's a big push on macro digital strategy and digital transformation. And we all understand how important that is. But that only works if you have employees collaborating effectively in the office. And so there's sort of this concept of how do I fix the foundations? How do I fix the underpinnings so that my employees can participate in this shiny new world? Talent is the core of what we all do when we run businesses. And if talent has fundamentally shifted their expectations, it's a bigger shift than we've seen in decades, right? And we need to figure out how to accommodate that.
Yeah, I just definitely wanted to make that tie because I think what you were saying about the CIO is really relevant. But I think there's this CEO CIO thread. There's these sort of digital shift mandates, and then of course,
Yeah.
you said the 7 letter word Chat GPT. Um, Look, even from the onset of, I mean, I can legitimately say since I saw you what a month or two ago
Yeah.
at Amplify, the
Right.
the influence of generative AI on
Yeah.
every business's strategy is
Yeah.
palpable. I mean,
Huge.
I don't know. I mean, Future, and we've launched our own generative search. Like we literally look at this business and we go, every business will change because of generative
Yeah.
AI.
That's right.
It's
That's right.
and so that's also changing the CEO's strategy about where people work. It's going to change the
Right.
CIO
Right.
strategy of how they work, what tools they have. You're going to pick tools based on which integrate best with that technology. So, you kind of mentioned in your last answer digital strategy. Um, Talk a little bit about how that drives innovation in the workplace.
Well, let me talk about it specifically from a HP point of view, right? So I manage the customer care for the organization, and we have thousands of agents around the world doing providing amazing service to HP customers, and that's great. But how do I make them so much more efficient with generative AI, right? And there's a lot we can do, and the trials and the demonstrations and the processes that we're seeing are really pretty exciting. But then you also think about sort of the core of HP's business as a technology provider, which is okay. How do I look at our computing models? The computing models are going to change as well. How much of it sits in the cloud? How much of it's high end intelligence at the edge because you want a private data model, and you want to make sure that you have that workstation capability at the edge. From a HP Workforce Solutions point of view, we have 114 million different devices out there. I'm managing and monitoring telemetry data on more than 40 million devices. What sort of machine learning models am I using on top of that to provide interesting insights to our customers? And so, as you said, it pervades the product side, it pervades the process side, it's every aspect of the business. And I'm trying to drive my team to rethink every bit of our process flow to make sure that we're so much more seamless for our customers. And so that's a massive, massive change to the business model.
Yeah, and with such a significant workforce out there too, one of the things that, I always talk about customer zero, right? But when you're a big company like HP and you're thinking about something like how to deploy successful remote work in this era, um, you have a great opportunity because you have the hardware, you have the software, you have the people, you've got global footprint, follow the sun service support. You should honestly be building almost like the perfect sandbox within HP to then roll it out. So talk a little bit about the company's approach to connecting and managing, workers' devices with the workforce so distributed.
So we have a CIO, Chief Digital and Transformation Officer, and his mandate is shifted right at the mandate of the CEO, and his mandate has become to manage the employee net promoter score. And a couple of years ago, we never would have imagined that, right? And so now we're looking at every sort of moment that matters in terms of how the employee is engaging with the technology and saying, what's the NPS at that point? What's the NPS after a help desk? What's the NPS at setup? What's the NPS when they're swapping devices? And it's sort of a very, very different mentality. And for me, from a thought leadership point of view, I'm bringing in our chief customer experience officer, who also now is responsible for employee experience. I'm bringing in PhDs from our HR team. I'm bringing in the head of strategy and saying we need to pull together, as you said, the customer zero experience with our tens of thousands of employees around the world. What's working so that people feel engaged in the office? We're also then bringing in all the know-how from the Poly team to say, okay, let's look at how that Poly gear is being used in the various offices around the world. Let's look at the engagement of our employees, the sentiment when they're in meetings, the use of space, what's working, what's not working, and let's aggregate all that together.
you know, so much of this talk lately around the impact of AI, the impact of distributed work has been about what are the jobs be of the future. I heard you mention at least two titles of chief leaders in your
Yeah,
business that I
yeah,
don't think existed a decade ago.
that's
So,
exactly right.
that's
Exactly right.
continuing to pop up. And I know, you and Enrique and the team continue to be innovators. You continue to be very focused on building an upskilled workforce, which is something I've always been impressed by.
Right.
That the company is continuously investing in innovation and change. Um, let's get a little bit of your advice.
Sure.
Talk about a bit about your principles. So, given that you've sort of seen this landscape, we've seen the shifting modalities, we've seen hardware, software. We've seen work from anywhere on any device. What advice? What would you say to the customers, clients, prospects out there about building a hybrid work in this era?
It's interesting. The concept of personas has been around IT for decades. But I think for the first time when I'm talking to customers, I'm seeing them say, "Remember that persona idea?" Right? That concept of sort of personalizing the technology and the experience based on the employee's role. Let's dust that off and actually use it. And so for the first time, we're seeing employers really try to understand in a lot more detail what the employees need for their jobs in different roles in different locations around the world. And there's a lot of complexity tied to that. And then you need to look at the office space and say, wait a minute, not every office is created the same way. Not every office is being used for the same purpose. And that's all kind of obvious, but it's actually really hard to quantify what kind of employees do I have coming into this office, which probably is very different than it was 2 years ago. And then how do I build out that space differently so that as I said before, I'm sort of earning the return, right? There's a great quote which is we're no longer fighting over the amenities in the office, right? It's not an issue of what kind of food's there. That's a factor, but it's really an issue of what sort of experience do I create in the office, and is it better than the 34-inch screen and the beautiful HP desktop that I have sitting here, right? And that's hard to match. And so that's kind of number one. And when I talk to big customers that have tens of thousands of employees across 60 different countries, they're like, Dave, how do I tackle this systematically, right? So that I have sort of a comprehensive view for every office across my 50, 60,000 employees, how I'm going to manage it. And then people really, really underestimate the basics, right? So get the basics right. That employee onboarding, that first moment really, really matters from an employee satisfaction point of view. And is it going to take you 57 emails, which I had a customer highlight for me the 57 emails that are required. It's like, wow, that's a terrible experience, right? Or is it going to be seamless where the machine shows up, the proper machine shows up for the proper persona, already connected to the headset, already connected to the printer that they may need to use, right? Already set up for the office, already set up for the credentials. Simple stuff, but it's so critical. If the machine breaks, before it breaks, you're fixing the machine for the employee. You're taking it back, right? And so there's a lot of fundamental basic stuff that even as we're talking about generative AI and digital transformation, to get that employee engagement high, we got to fix the basics, right? Then I think we all are much happier if we have a sense of mission. You talked a little bit about sort of the mission driven focus for HP, and it's a huge driver on why we have employees with 30 plus years of experience at the company, right? And so making sure that there's a tie-in for sustainability, there's a tie-in to say, hey, we're not going to waste these resources that we're providing to you, but we're tied into a broader mission as a company. I think those are all sort of really critical drivers for employee engagement.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that you alluded to is, you know, the devices themselves are becoming incredibly powerful.
Right,
And this is something that I am really interested in, Dave, seeing how it develops because, we've kind of gone through this, period of time with, well, do we do everything on our device? Do we do
right,
everything at the edge? Do we need
right.
appliances in different spaces? Do
Yeah,
we, again, with generative, is that going to be a toolbox for creating more meeting equity? We've used AI for
right,
this. How does
right.
how does the next layer? But I also do think some of these trends will drive another wave of renew and upgrade of
Yeah,
systems,
yeah,
which is very exciting. I do think that we hit on this early on. There is value in getting people in a room together, but there is value in everybody that's in the room and not in the room having a similar experience
that's right.
and making sure that the technology enables that. There's also a ton of value in making sure that people are secure, protected, that their data is managed. And of course, that, we continue to get better, and that's kind of one of those parts of this. What we do is, you could call it continuous improvement, optimization, but that the hybrid work style, whether that's the way we collect data to do it better, or that's just the way we upgrade systems regularly
Right.
to make sure
Right.
that people always have the best tech so that, when they're working at home, you can hear clear, you can see clear, you can
Right.
engage with content. So these are all things that are, really, really important. So I appreciate you kind of pulling and tying that all together for me. So as we sort of wind down this session, I guess I would just love to get your take on, how you sort of tie all this together. So, you know, you talk to customers a lot. I've
Right.
listened to you from before you joined HP. Now you're at HP. Customer centricity has always been a big thing for you. How do you tie all this together and really help these customers that have hybrid workplace needs?
Yeah, I think the key thing is, as you said, it's the principle, right? Which is I've always been advocating customer, 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 and it's great to see that as part of the HP way as well. But what that means practically is a lot of sit down time with the customers to really understand their needs in detail and make sure we're addressing it. I think practically from an HP point of view, our mission is simple. We think the world is transforming digitally, right? We want to enable our customers to do that. And whether they're using generative AI or something else, that's great. So therefore, we think as a trusted partner with the global brand and the global scale that we have, our mission is simple, which is we want to make sure that employee experience is rock solid. And every aspect of the employee engagement with the company, whether it's technology or mission or something else, is something that we think we can really optimize and provide sort of an amazing solution to our customers. And then to really take the best practices from all of our thousands of different collaboration customers to say, okay, how do we learn from that experimentation, which is happening on a global basis, and bring that capability into the companies that we serve? And things like digital equity are critical, right? And you and I talked about this in the past, right? The ability to be in a meeting and feel like you're there in person, whether you're remote or in the room, is critical. And the AI capabilities that you have from a vision point of view and the various poly cameras to pull together that sort of digital equity experience is critical. And then the management, the monitoring, the optimization that we have on the basis of our telemetry data to tell the CIOs and the CEOs, hey, you got an employee experience problem, right? Let's fix it together is really, really important. So it's got it. We all have to kind of realize that the world's changed and there's going to be a series of iterative steps, and we're going to learn and continue to optimize the collaboration. Of course, the underpinnings, as you said, have to be security, have to be sort of the protection that goes with robust cybersecurity capabilities, and also I think a concept of sustainability, which is we all know in this high interest rate world, this uncertain world, we need to stretch the value of our resources as much as possible. And so HP is all in on refurbishment and renewal because we think that's an important mission that we provide to our customers as well. So it's exciting times. There's a lot going on. The world's changing, but I think it's a fun time to jump in and solve the issues of collaboration and hybrid work.
Yeah, Dave, I think you wrapped it up almost perfectly for me. This is an era where companies can definitely get more value if they're thinking across the value chain of how to implement remote and hybrid opportunities, utilizing the right subsets of technology, considering, as you suggested, and I think I did earlier, both sustainable, secure, and of course, modern. Those three things,
Right.
keeping up to date. AI will certainly continue to influence. And I believe there's a big role for AI to play at the edge, which I think
Yeah.
is going to be very exciting for
Yeah.
what you're doing in modern work
Absolutely.
at,
Absolutely.
at HP. So, Dave, thank you so much. I really appreciate you kicking off day three, the modern work and devices track here at the 6.5 Summit. This is a topic every company's interested in because it really is not just about tech, but it's about tech, it's about people, it's about productivity,
Right.
and so much more. Hope to have you back at on the 6.5 soon, Dave.
My
Thanks for kicking
pleasure.
us off.
Have fun. Thanks.
All right, everybody. There you had it. Dave Shull, President, HP Workforce Solutions. Great way to start off our track today. Stay with us. Many more coming up. See you soon.